G'day, I'm Ali Amo, and this is the A Lease on Life podcast. Today I have with me Shaia Astra, who is a New Yorker through and through, but she now lives in California, and she is a spiritual healer and teacher. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here, and I'm so excited to chat.
So I like to start my energy workers with the same question. What does the word energy mean to you? How do you understand energy?
Oh gosh. It really, it's such, in some ways it's a really easy question, right? But also it is layered and it can go into a lot of different places. I think of energy as just one layer of what makes up everything, right? So energy is all that it is. Energy makes up everything. But you can go into deeper layers. Well, what is it that makes energy up? You could go into very scientific atoms and chemicals, right? Like things like that. But I really look a lot of sort of two places for the way that I use it, because it's one thing to understand it, but it's another thing to be able to utilize it. And so really going into energy as consciousness, as thought, as the awareness, the question, the answer, right? And then I also think of it as all that is in the way of a more spiritual answer of divine, of source, the universe, right? Whatever words we want to use to describe it. And I think part of the problem is that language is so finite that anything that we use to describe these like really big concepts in usage can be taken in a lot of different ways. So I think of energy as that which we are made of. But the way that I would use energy to manipulate it physically when working with someone is different than the way that I would use energy when resonating to shift into a different place of experience of consciousness. So I know that that's not a straightforward answer, but I think that it can be different things depending upon how we're using it. Kind of like water, you can freeze it, you can boil it. And yes, there's a basic structure to it. But depending upon how you're going to use it, it changes and you can change it.
I don't think anyone who gives a simple answer to that question doesn't really understand energy because there are so many different facets. So you're absolutely correct. When
Yeah.
it comes to things in the spiritual realm, how is it that energy works through you, moves through you, information comes to you? Because you're a very much an all-rounder, right?
Yeah, so I've moved past modalities to be able to really have tools in my toolbox, but any system that you use has limitations. No matter how great the system, no matter how incredible astrology and body talk and Reiki and whatever it is, they all have amazing, phenomenal, fantastic things that can be used. But we reach this point of, okay, well, there's more to us and there's more pieces. And so I've studied so many different things. I've studied energy, I've studied consciousness, I've studied epigenetics and anatomy and physiology, and take that wisdom from so many different places. Sometimes I will work with energy physically and I can see it and manipulate it and like shift what needs to shift. Sometimes I'm working on it through consciousness in the sense of like I can watch it and I can manipulate it through that awareness of it. So to be able to see, let's say, the web, that image that you have shared, to be able to see that and to be able to see where those pieces, the hologram of it, where those pieces are rising up, which ones are falling more into the background, which ones are slanted and need to be adjusted a little bit, right? Like it can be worked on at that level. And I also will get messages and just connecting to divine source through the Akasha to the field of all that is, and to be able to pick up that information that will come in. Generally speaking, I have a lot of clairaudience, clairvoyance. So sight, sound, I can taste, I can smell, I can like feel downloads happen, pop-ups happen. So really I'm open to however the information wants to come in. though I do have boundaries set of what I'm comfortable with. So I don't often directly channel where they take over because it's just not how I like to work. I like to be more involved than that. And I like to be part of the process. Like there's a reason that I'm the one as opposed to anybody. So I like to be part and integrated into that process. But I think that the energy can really, it can come from anywhere and it can go anywhere. And when you open up to that, it allows all things to be possible. And I think that's where so much fun can happen and so much potential and possibility.
So how long has, well, this journey you've been on with learning has been going for a long time, but did something happen maybe in your childhood or later on in life that gave you the knowledge that you already had some innate gifts that were untapped or were coming out to be expressed?
Yeah. I mean, I think we all have gifts and we all have stuff that's happened to us that has led us on our journey. And the way that I look at it is if the big if I set out to be in a place where I could wake up from our current reality, be able to think for myself, be able to see what's right or wrong, not need to be told by the news or by anybody else what I need to believe and who I need to be, then I need to wake up. And that was the first part of my journey that I set for myself. The second part was, okay, what's next? And how do I live in that next place? I didn't have very much support as a kid, and I had to figure a lot out myself. And that was traumatic and painful. And there's a lot of really awful things that happened. I have memories of my senses being so heightened and seeing things and hearing things and being terrified, and nobody understood. Nobody would listen. I was called crazy. I was like dramatic, all of these things. And it's like, okay, but like there's someone standing next to you. There's someone in the room. And later learning that there was a gateway of energy of souls that could come in and out in the corner of my room. And being able to close that as an adult was so powerful, by the way.
Uh,
Knowing something's happening and having no idea what, it was really difficult to go a normal path. And I would say my teens into my 20s was really like, okay, I am super normal and I can be awesome and I can do these things. And there was always a part of me that questioned things and that wanted to understand more, and that I have a lot of Pluto in me. So I'm like very passionate and intense and like that Scorpio energy. That is a lot for people who don't get it. It led to a place where I was choosing all the things that I had grown up with, right? These codependent relationships and really abusive situations. And when they fell apart, not the first time, not a second time, right? Like 'cause things have to keep happening sometimes. But I got to this point where I realized that my life was not what I wanted it to be. And that I couldn't blame anybody else. I couldn't blame my partners. I couldn't blame my family. I couldn't blame anybody else because if it kept happening to me, then there had to be a reason. And that's when I started to say, okay, what am I doing? What am I choosing? Who am I? What do I want to be? And that sort of started to unfold. And I had, in my late 20s, I had a kid and he's amazing. As my marriage fell apart at that time, it forced me to raise a kid alone, go through all of that, grow up myself, figure out that I didn't want to raise him in the same way that I was raised. That process really pushed me to heal my wounds, to not push things forward. I took a few years to stay home with him when he was small. And when he went off to school, I knew I didn't want to go back to my old career because that was just not right for me, though it is. I worked in video editing, so it has helped me in this journey. But I remember looking at Craigslist, like all these ads of potential jobs and careers just to see, like, what do I want? What feels good? And being in this place of where am I in my life and how do I even make a decision for myself? So I found an ad and was like, okay, I could do that. It was just some random thing. And Like, okay, what do I need to learn for that? Oh, holistic nutrition. Okay, cool. Let me look into that. And so I looked into it and I found a school that was actually I'm outside of San Francisco and it was right across town that was starting. And I emailed them, they called me back. And like 4 or 5 days later, class started and I was in it. Then I went into functional medicine and really learning a lot about the body and alternative medicine, supplements and nutrients and all of that, energy testing, muscle testing. Like it just kept going.
You
So
kept
I think
expanding.
that my professional journey was one in which I was trying to find answers for myself, for my clients on how to feel good, how to take all the trauma and all the stuff from yesterday and turn it into a good life today, happiness, right? How to not be depressed, how to believe in something, how to know who I am. All of these things just kept rolling along and building towards where I am now.
You have quite a background, and it's holistic is a magic word for that because you
Mhm.
have knowledge of so many different facets, I suppose, of an individual that you can bring it down to earth and ground it in some of the scientific stuff that you've learned. So you're not lost in what they call the woo woo. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But the difference being, well, you did say you learned to, I don't think control is the right word, establish the boundaries to gain that self control. Cause I can't imagine what it would be like as a child to see people who other people can't see. So you're obviously quite comfortable with mediumship then if that's the case for you, right?
Not so much. It took a really long time. So I actually, as a kid, turned everything off and was like, nope. I had a lot of years where I was really shut down to all of it. It wasn't safe to be in those places. When I began opening up, I remember when I first learned muscle testing, like how to test a muscle. It took me a year before I really felt confident in a yes or a no response. That's a lot of time for something like that. But for me, it's such an inner process that it's not just about what's happening with the muscle, it's what's happening within me when that's happening. I will occasionally, and I have seen things since, but I tend not to go in that realm because I just feel like for me, for where I'm at, I am in a human body for this set amount of time. So if I am in this human body for this set amount of time, then I'm here to do human things. How do I take all of that spiritual, all the seeing things and hearing things, all of the extra access that I've worked to get that are natural, whatever it is that I've learned, and how do I take that and bring it into the human experience? So I tend not to cross over too much, even though I can channel divine source, I can connect to all of that. I look at it as, but I'm in the human for a reason. And if I could do it all at the soul, I would have stayed at soul. I wouldn't have gone through all of this. Hell no. So I think that there's a certain amount of like what we came here to do. It's really fun, hard work, exhausting, all of the different things to see spirits. Like it sounds so cool and to hear things and to know things and to stay connected. But at the end of the day, how is it helping our human life? How is it moving us forward? Are we using it to bypass the trauma we need to heal, the truth we need to
Grief.
uncover? Right. So it's like
Yeah. Mm.
coming back to what's the depth within it and how can we move forward with that?
You know what? I actually agree. Every time I've ever wanted to have some form of communication with someone who's passed, it was so much more about me than it was them. It was me needing the confirmation and me needing the acknowledgement and me needing the validation. Even when you know they're okay, it's because you're not okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something random, but I've always been curious about it. When you see someone who's passed, do they look as real as you and me? Do they look like, what are you actually seeing? Are you able to distinguish whether it's something you can touch and something you can't?
I tend to see it's more like not quite a hologram in the way that I work with a hologram, but it's more just like an image of them that I'll see. And generally, the ones that I've seen are the ones that are stuck here. They're more like earthbound. They are linked into here. They haven't left this plane yet for whatever reason. I remember one time I think I was coming back from college, from university, and was staying at my dad's. And in the middle of the night, I see this guy walk in, and it was just like upper half of his body that I could see. And it's very sheer. It's not three-dimensional. You can just tell that there's almost like a flatness to it. There's not that depth of it. Energy does go a little bit deeper, but it's not like a body. It doesn't have that heft how I see it. And so I saw this guy and I was like, "Okay, what's going on here?" The next morning, I said to my dad, I was like, "So you have a ghost? Like, what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's the owner. He passed." And he described him. He showed me a picture and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, okay." And we hadn't had that conversation before, that there was a ghost living there and he could see him and I could see him and we saw the same thing. I think when it happens to you, you know that it's not human, it's not normal. But also, I tend to look at it as like, okay, does this soul need help?
Mm.
Which is often the case. Or if they don't need help, why are they showing up? And as far as loved ones who have passed, when I see them, I have channeled for some clients when they need it, but I tend to do it very lightly just because it's energetically a different place to connect to. And the way that I've experienced it a lot of times is that we all have our journeys to take. When we leave this incarnation and step into the next place, are we gonna wanna hang out just to see what everyone else is doing? Or we connect back to soul and we're like, "Oh, man, that was such an experience. Okay, what's next? Where am I going next?" So when I connect, I do find that it tends to be for the humans that need help, that soul stays around to help them rather than just some place that they're hanging around in limbo or just this meeting ground to be here. I think they connect back when they're ready to the higher soul, the higher being that they are. And that's a really different relationship to the earth life that they left. Because that
Sense.
soul
Yeah.
may have had thousands of families, hundreds of thousands of families that they loved.
Mm. Something you mentioned before, the Kasha, you said.
Yes.
So you get information or downloads from the Akashic Records. Is that accurate?
I can. I have. The Akashic Records is like a specific place. I've learned from multiple teachers how to connect different ways. You go through, it could be a prayer, it could be visualization. There's all different techniques to connect, but it's elevating your connection and your frequency. Kind of like you could read a book, but if you're going to study, you're going to like set everything up. You're going to like get your books, your light, your pens, and so connecting to the records is like going to a specific place. The way that I've been told to, through my connections, the way that they've explained it to me is that that was a structure that was needed in humanity. It was needed to be able to have a place to connect to and bring information in. But part of what happens, and this is completely not the normal way that people see it, but part of what happens is that these old structures aren't needed in the same way. I can connect into the records, but if you think about the Akashic Records, where are they? The Akashic Records are a library or a book. Well, where is that library? Where is the book stored? What's the door to the library look like? What's above the library? What's below it? Well, if the Akashic Records is a storehouse for all this information, where is the storehouse stored? And zooming back to the macrocosm and to the wider, more expansive layers of it is the field, is all that is. And so I connect into the field and I can go into the records, but I can also go other places too. And I find that it gives a lot more freedom for information to come in, for things to be shared. It's more expansive, so it can be a little bit harder to manage, I've found. But again, it comes back to the same thing. What's your goal? Is your goal to find stuff out about yourself that happened so that you can feed your ego, so that you can like say, oh, this is who I was, or this is why I had to do this? Or is the goal to be able to change your life, to live more embodied, to understand why things are happening, to understand what power you have to do something about it? So it's a little bit different.
Can you explain from your understanding what these records are for people who don't know or have
Yes. The Akashic Records are a compendium. There's different ways to understand it. The first way that I was taught to understand them is that it's like a library. And in the library, everything that has ever existed is stored there as information. It's like the World Wide Web. You can connect to the web, you can go to a website, and you can get information. So it's like the World Wide Web of every soul experience you've had, every business, every animal, every event that's happened through all time has information stored there. So it's a really cool place to be able to go and say, okay, well, my business, what's the story on it? What can I do about it? My soul, what things have I been through that I can heal, that I can learn from and grow from and work on? I have another teacher that uses the Akashic Record more like a portal, a doorway. So it's like, okay, I'm going to connect in. Let me plug myself into that place to then get the information. So there's different ways to understand it. Classically, it's more known as like the book of life, if you've heard of that, where everything is written, everything is stored that ever was, is, and will be. We all have access to this. It's just whether we're consciously aware of it and we're utilizing it or not. But we all are already connected.
when you do something like a past life regression, what
Yeah.
tends to come up for you or through somebody else for you is the things that you need to be aware of here and now to help you in this life? Or do you get information that you're not quite sure how it fits into what they need or what you're feeling like they need help with? It's just what comes through? Or is it like you pick the book that you're looking for to get the answer that you're trying to find? Very much so
It's
like that?
all of that, right? Like, think about it.
Mm.
Sometimes you go to a library and you're like, I have no idea what book I need. And sometimes you're like, okay, I know exactly what I want to research. I know exactly what I want to work on. So if I were to connect to, let's say, somebody's business, we may go into what's happening with their business that we need to know about. Why is it not flowing? Why is there a block on income? Why are expenses so high? Whatever the questions are that somebody has. We can also look at it as a past life regression, all of that, where you access the past life. Now, sometimes it's about, wow, this thing happened. I'm still doing the same thing. These patterns come up, these really big patterns that are like, okay, wow, I chose to not believe in myself in a past life. And here's what happened. Oh man, that sucked. And often we'll feel resonance. It's hard to
Mm.
explain. You just feel like, oh yeah, I don't know why that happened. I can feel it. Another piece of it is, okay, how can I stop making that choice in this life? So that can come up and it can change our lives because we see these really deeply ingrained patterns that we may not have noticed or realized are impacting us as much as they are. And the other piece is that sometimes things will come in. Like I've had things come in where somebody is carrying around a contract with someone from life to life. A soulmate contract is a really common one where it's like, we'll be soulmates forever. We promise this is how it's going to be. There's a contract that we're going to be soulmates. I'll find you in the next life, right? And over and over and over. When that keeps going, what can happen is that if we weren't meant to be with that person in a future life, we'll replay the trauma of it. Why do I feel so connected to this person? They're not good for me. Well, because they're from a past life. So we may be carrying around pieces of another soul with us. One of the first experiences that I had was an event that happened that she told me what I was part of. I had been carrying around a soul with me, a piece of their soul that was still attached and still connected for insane amounts of time. She told me what to do to release it. the practice to do. And I have never cried so hard for something I have no idea about. Like, I was bawling because I could feel the
Yeah.
intensity, and I'm like, "I don't know this person." Like, it's such this weird feeling of just, "Why am I crying so hard?" I didn't wanna do it. It was like I couldn't get myself to, like, say it, to, like I really had to push for something that made no logical sense, and I could feel the intensity of, and it really took me a long time to let that soul go. Sobbing, sobbing, sobbing from the pain of it and the loss and the heartache. And afterwards, it was like something had just freed up so beautifully that I hadn't realized was so blocking my life until it was shown to me and I could experience letting go of it. So it really can come in different ways.
Do you have control over what comes in and when? Like, are you just finding when you speak to people, things come up, or is it something that you tap in and tap out of?
I would say that for me to get the best connection, I tap in and actually go through my process that I've been given and tune in and connect in. I can pick up things from people that it's like when you see someone in the supermarket, right? It's like, oh, yeah, they have blonde hair, they have blue eyes. Like you just see these things. You don't actually think about, oh, what do they look like? You just see people and you see these physical characteristics. So I can see without even looking energetic pieces or I can feel them. I think it also depends what that person is ready to show or is able to show, because sometimes it'll be used as like a barrier where I'll see, oh, wow, that person's got a lot of stuff. I need to stay back here a little bit because they're where they are. And it will help me step back a little bit from them and leave them to be in their own place. So that can come in that way too. But I always respect boundaries. I'm never going to tune in with someone without their permission beyond what I just see when you see a random person on the street.
So you see different energies, right? How does that, and you kind of like, it's most, is it a feeling thing that like you feel the energy? What is it, what do different energies feel like to you? How does it sit in the body? And then how does your mind process it? Sorry, that's a big question.
I know. I did like a month-long course on that last summer to help teach that. So, what's the best way to describe this? And this would be one way. So, I'll model this right now. So, there's the brain within me that's, and then my mouth and my throat, like all these different parts that are like, okay, this is the answer, and say this, and say this, and say this. And then there's a part of me that can quiet down and say, what are the people listening? What do you need to hear from this? And take a breath. And when we quiet down, we can come into this place of like, okay, so sometimes it sounds like a knowing. You just know. It can also come in through signs, synchronicities, looking at the same number on your clock, seeing feathers, right? These are like common signs that people will say. But it can also come in like today I was sitting on my porch and I was connected in and I was doing some journaling and I was writing something. And my neighbor walked by really loudly on the phone. And what she was saying was another piece of what I was working on. I was like, oh, okay. There's a reason that she walked by at that exact moment that I listened to it. I could hear her as she was, going down the pathway. So it can come in as things that we're aware of. Why do we suddenly tune into a song that's playing? The radio might be on all day, we don't hear it, and then all of a sudden we hear one song. So it can come in like these little moments of awareness within us. I've worked a lot on being able to see the hologram, so being able to see someone physically and then being able to see their energetic body.
Expand on that a
I
little bit.
see. Yes, it's can be a whole big thing, but if you just close your eyes for a second and take a deep breath and just really feel yourself in your body, feel where you are, feel your feet on the ground, Really just feeling yourself settle into your seat. And just imagine in your mind's eye, and you might see it actually in your mind's eye, like where you see a dream. You might see it on the back of your eyelids, or you might see it almost like projected out in front of you. So see if you can, wherever you see it, just acknowledge, like, okay, that's where I see it. And imagine that you could see an image of yourself, but you don't look like you. You look like something else. Maybe you see flowers or just a big black and red splotch. What do you see when you imagine yourself and visualize yourself?
I'm seeing just like a lines, like a silhouette kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like orangey and red. But I don't know if that's my own. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's just my mind or I don't know what that is.
Well, and that's practice.
Mm.
And that's also working with someone who knows how to tell the difference between both and knows how to clear the filters and the programming so that you know for yourself. And that's so much what I teach with my students. I have a year-long training program, and what I teach is how to do this stuff, how to see yourself, how to clear the programming. And we're also doing it with divine helping and the angels and the helper, like all these, they're helping also. But if you think about what's the difference, if it's coming from your mind or if it's coming from somewhere else, there's a reason that that came to you. So if we leave off for just a moment where it came from, how did it feel to see those orange lines?
Kind of calming.
Did
Yeah.
they feel like they
It's
were in the right
strange.
spot? Did it feel like they need to move a little bit, to go down, to go up?
Well, it was almost the silhouette of the head and shoulders, but it was getting bigger and going outwards. And I don't know, I found it calming to watch with it because I wasn't thinking about what I was seeing or questioning. I was just it was only afterwards I'm like, is that a thing? Is that
Yeah.
like what was that? I like how you explain things. I think you'd be a really good teacher. You're very patient and the wisdom certainly comes through. Is that
Thank
one of your
you.
favorite things to do? More so
It is.
than
I
mm,
was, a practitioner for years and years. I've done thousands of sessions, and I love it, and also was a little burnt out. I started last year and created a whole, like, the year-long training program, and then I have sessions that people can get to help them open up, to help them expand. So it's like there's the learning aspect of it, but there's also the healing aspect of it. If our third eye is blocked, if we don't have enough nutrients, if we have something in our epigenetic line from someone who came before, generational trauma, emotional belief systems, whatever it is that's coming up that is keeping us from being able to access our truth, access our third eye, access our energy, our knowing, our essence, our soul, all of these things, then that's the healing aspect too that comes in. So it's really powerful. I love helping people become who they want to be and be amazed and surprised at what's possible for them.
do you get a lot of people that are starting from scratch or do they usually have some kind of natural gravitation or background in some form of spirituality to gravitate towards you in the first place?
I
Mm.
tend to get really powerful people who don't yet know of their power. So I tend to connect people who they like this, they think it's really cool, but like, no, they're not like huge and powerful. They're like happy in their little spot, but also they're not happy there at all. So I love being able to open the door for them and show them like, no, no, that's who you're supposed to be, actually. Like that. And they're so often just like, that's possible? Like, I could be that happy, I could be that fulfilled, I could live my purpose, I could know my yes and no and what that feels like. I could be more, and also, I could let go of all the pain and the trauma. We do a lot of deep healing work. So much of it is because I have gone through it, right? I have been broken down to the nubs time and time again. So I know what it's like and I know how to get out of it and how to help people get out of it and how to show them how to not have to go in it and release it and heal it, whatever's needed. And so I tend to get a lot of people that have lost hope because they've tried so many things and nothing's helped them. They are tired of things working for everyone else. I've had a lot of people that came in that, like, doctors, 20 years, could never figure anything out. In one session, we'd heal it. So I get a lot of people that are not yet sure of themselves, but they're powerful inside, and they often will resonate with my work because it reminds them of what they know, and it helps them feel like something's possible for them, and that is one of my favorite things. So it's the people who, when they hear me talk, when we are in sessions, they feel like anything's possible. They're possible. And that I just think is such magic.
I'm curious to know, when you found health problems that medicine can't explain and healed them, do you know what the connection is between when that disease started in the body and what triggered it? Do you get a sense of that as well?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. And also, it depends if the person's ready for it. It depends if they're ready to heal it. I was working on someone maybe a month or two ago, this session, that was working on really helping them know what's next for them. They had a lot of questions about what's their next step that they were asking, but while we were checking in, we had to work on their microbiome in their gut. It was just there was just stuff going on. So we were going into the bacteria and working on where they were and where they needed to be and moving them. This person had told me nothing, that they were having like serious digestive problems and that things were better afterwards. So it can really come in so many different ways. It could be belief systems that are locking it in. It could be if someone believes, I need this illness for a certain reason. If they believe that they're not enough, if they believe that they are a problem, these like deep, deep kind of core places and these core wounds, it can come from there. It can come through the epigenetic line, so it can actually be at the cellular level, but it could also be the blood, the organs, the endocrines. It could be in the connective system. It could be the lymphatics, right? Like, it can be anywhere in the physical. And so one of the things that I like about the systems that I've learned is that there's quick ways to scan through and say, all right, are we at the physical, the mental, the emotional? Are we at the spiritual? Where are we? And what's needed? Because I've studied so much and I've done so many sessions, it just pops in for me now. And I bring that in while we're connected to source to be able to bring all the pieces. Because when we work on something like, okay, we're working on the bacteria, but then to bring divine love in and to allow that to transmit down, it's like maybe they needed trust to come in. Maybe their body doesn't know what safety feels like. And we need to bring that frequency in for them to feel safe, to be able to let those microbes move or whatever it is, right? Like, there's so many different ways it can come in.
There's definitely a connection with mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, but often you need the spiritual perspective to see it all as one, because we know Western medicine tends to treat symptoms as the
Yes.
problem. And once you fix the symptoms and they no longer show, then the person doesn't have the problem. But what's happening underneath in the core of the body will then show itself in other ways, or it will manifest into something bigger. How would someone connect with you if they wanted to work with you, to learn from you, to check you out and just suss you out a little bit more? Where would they go
Yeah.
for those things?
Oh my God, all the sus. So my website is shiaastra.com. And I have everything broken down. I have a free session on there that I recorded. It's called Divine Integration. I think it's about 20 minutes if I'm remembering. And you get to just listen and just feel what it feels like to receive a session. Group sessions, group healing sessions are kind of like a healing buffet where we're putting out all these different meals and everybody takes the pieces that they need. So it can be a really powerful way. And then That one is really designed to help you begin to just feel that there's something else, there's something more to you. There's this thing, right? This little itch that it's like, okay, there's another something. What is that? Huh. And so it's just designed to start that process. But I have a training program that I do, level 1 light, level 2 shadow, level 3 dark, and level 4 is
Mhm.
completion, which is a weekend intensive and it goes over the course of a year. I am just finishing up we had the level 4 class in March, and my students were like, "Okay, but we don't want class to end." So I was like, "Okay." I'm doing an extension class with them, which is just every 2 weeks so that we can keep integrating. But they are amazed at what they're able to do, the trauma they have released, the things that they're able to do now. Like, it is so much self-actualization work. So I
Mm.
love that. And then I have Instagram. I've been posting on Threads, just trying to share the messages and just to bring a different energy to Threads. There's some interesting people and some interesting things that are happening there. And it's nice to just be able to, when a message comes in, just share that without having to like make a video and do all the things. But you can also
Yeah.
email me if you have any direct questions that are just about my work or what program may be right, things like that. I can help, of course.
So thanks for being here with us for this app. New ones will come out to you every other Thursday. If you'd like to check out or get in touch with Shaia Astra, all the links will be included in the show notes. And if you'd like to stay up to date with the world of Ali Ammo, follow me on social. That was a funker. Say that again in English. And if you'd like to stay up to date in the world of Ali Ammo, follow me on socials. Take it easy, people. You'll hear from me soon.